welcome to the Archive Guys podcast. I'm your host, Matt Patterson, and today I'm joined with my co-host, Daniel Ferranti. Kelsey couldn't make it today because she said she's in, quote, Jersey, which I think she means New Jersey and not the island off the French. It's more off of France than England.
Details that no one needs.
And our guest today is Heath Holland from Cereal at Midnight. He has his own podcast / blog, right? Is that what would you call it, Heath?
I would call it a YouTube channel, and I've also got a website, and I've also, it's not a podcast, but maybe it should be a podcast. I don't know. Maybe I started in podcasting back in 2007. We could talk about that if you want to, but I'm old.
Yeah. Well, we're older, probably.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. By the way, thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I love listening to you guys for forever. I mean, I don't even know how many hundreds of hours I have of you in my ears right here.
Right, and totally back at you, Heath. I mean, I've watched Cereal at Midnight a ton to the point where, like, this is actually the first time I've met you, but I feel like I already know you.
And Heath is a good example of somebody who Dan and I encountered because of our work at our former jobs. And part of my job was to basically
recruit.
Now call it influencer marketing, but I called it talking to people who like movies and stuff and trying to get them to review our product. And I think you probably approached me actually on social media. Is that what happened, Heath?
I think so. Yeah, I think I reached out via maybe Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter, and then
R.I.P. Twitter.
And I watched your YouTube show early, and I think it was like kind of more earlier in your process. Yeah. But your approach to it was exactly what I liked and was looking for people to do, because we didn't have that kind of show. We were doing our podcast, but YouTube, we had a very good YouTube channel going, but it was mostly trailers and Dan and I doing unwrapping and stuff. And Dan saw your stuff and we're like, yeah, let's send him discs. And so you were one of probably our most prolific YouTuber. What do you think, Dan? That's probably right? Because we had some pretty prolific bloggers like,
I had the whole section on our YouTube page where I would share the reviewer YouTube channels, and Heath's stuff got a lot of traffic.
Dan and I don't get as many, we'll call them free discs anymore. And Heath's got all this great stuff coming in, and I brought him on so he could talk about maybe a few new things that he had featured. And one of the real reasons I reached out is I saw a video that he had, Dark Shadows box set in the shape of a coffin. Look at that thing.
That is amazing.
And that is the screenshot that I saw on your blog. And I was like, my first thought was, oh my God.
It's so cool. So cool.
And my first thought was, how jealous is Dan going to be when he sees that?
Yeah, that's because always has been out of my reach, but heavily desired.
And it is DVD only, right? That's a DVD only box set. And will that ever come out on Blu-ray?
Doubtful.
It's shot on videotape, so what would be the point? Yeah. Well, smaller size, that's one thing.
Well, and yet it's very hard. I've had this discussion with people in the professional production end, and I've been like, why don't you just put it on Blu-ray for that very reason? Like, it doesn't have to be a 4K master. It's just like, put an entire 2 years on one disc, and they look at you like you're nuts. Because the only people that actually do that are the pirates, and I don't understand why people on the professional production end happily allow the pirates to drive the discussion.
And some of the anime companies have started to do that as well. Standard definition on Blu-ray, which is cool to them.
And that's because a lot of collectors have moved to the Blu-ray format, and a lot of consumers have too, without realizing it, because I've encountered people who are like, I don't have Blu-ray, and I go to their house and it's like their DVD machine takes Blu-ray. they just didn't know, which is kind of one of the failures of the hardware market, to explain to people what they own.
I just a few weeks ago, a friend of mine who is a VFX designer who's worked for many studios like Marvel and LucasArts, and he's an anime fan, and he needs to be able to play all region DVDs, and I was like, dude, yeah, you can literally go on Amazon or Best Buy and get a $50 player that's all region and will also play Blu-rays. And he was like, oh, really? Because the industry has failed itself there.
Neither of you mentioned is that the video format that a lot of these shows were shot on was better than SD, right?
Yeah.
And so it has more information than a compressed NTSC file. So if you use the right software and pull it in, you're going to get something better than DVD.
Matt, it's funny that you say that, because who's had great success with taking videotape masters and putting them on Blu-ray is the whole Doctor Who range from the BBC, because those are shot on videotape as well.
That's correct.
But boy, do they look good on the Blu-ray.
Half on video. The outdoor stuff was shot on film.
Yeah.
And just to be the actual guy. Yeah,
right.
16. Yep.
And they've gotten very good at putting 16 millimeter on HD. When the format first came out, people were like, oh, it's 16 millimeter. Why do it on HD? Well, now I've seen a lot of indie films that were shot, and they look great.
Yeah, I remember when they released Threads, which I think was shot on 16. I put that out on Blu-ray, and there was a lot of raised eyebrows, but it looks great.
I saw it in the Spielberg Theater in the Egyptian before they destroyed that theater. But I saw it in person, and I immediately, if you remember, I came back to work and I was like, 16, they cracked it. It looks great. And I believe, Dan, and you might know, I think that they shot Doctor Who on 2-inch tape. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And as we've seen, masters that come off in 2-inch are like 720p.
Yeah, no, there's actually a great book that about it's primarily about the lost Doctor Who episodes, but it is a mammoth, highly detailed, super dorky book called Wiped, about the Doctor Who tapes and the history of they're getting bicycled around Australia and Africa and being recovered, but also, the writer heavily gets into the actual super interesting, super wonky process in which video was edited back then, because they literally spliced and then dropped silver on it to do the taping. I mean, it's not at all what the non-linear editors are used to.
It's high quality. The issue with videotape SD to Blu-ray more comes in when they started to use early computer finishing.
Yep.
Like the 90s.
Yeah, and that's when. Yep.
That's the problem. But if you go before then, if it was shot even on 3/4, right? Like 1-inch tape, 3/4, and especially 2-inch look way better. Now back to Heath, because we just went off way on a mastering tangent.
I enjoyed it though. That was great to listen to.
But Heath gets to see the results of that. And while Heath, right now you're focusing a lot more on physical media because you are a fan of films and TV shows, one of the things where it's not just collectors, but we'll call them film fans now, streaming services and even rentals, right? Video rentals, digital video rentals. There's and AVOD, right? Advertising supported video on demand. There are so many options out there where you can see good, solid masters for free if you're a member, or inexpensive if you're renting it. And so sometimes it becomes, do I get this on physical, or do I watch it on streaming? What end of the spectrum do you fall on in that kind of argument meaning like argumentation?
Yeah, no, it tends to be physical for me just because for my own particular interests, streaming is great for discovery and it's great for the things that can't get a physical release. And I don't want to discount that because that's super important. You know, we all know filmmakers that they're lucky if they can get a Blu-ray pressing or a DVD pressing. And a lot of these people the only way people are going to find their movie is if it's on streaming. So it's a great resource for that. But for me I just tend to be so focused on movie history. That's my own, like my goal. I guess I'm in I'm working my way towards film history. You know, that's what I'm attracted to. So I'm looking at the restorations that are coming out of, I mean, that's why I reached out to you at Warner Archive, because I was like, man, you guys have this huge catalog and it's being taken such good care of. And for me, I like the bells and whistles, like the commentaries, and I like the deleted scenes, and I like all the stuff that comes. The tangibility of it is less important to me, and that's the thing that I think sometimes people don't understand when I say that. They're like, traitor! But it's a delivery system, you know? And if we fetishize the delivery system over what's actually on it, that's problematic for me, because then you've put the cart before the horse, right? If I can get a stream that has all the, you know, the film in high quality and special features in high quality, and I know it's always going to be there, then we have no problem. But we don't. That's often not the case, right? With censorship being what it is, and we're seeing things even with like 30 Rock, right? Like there are episodes of 30 Rock that no longer exist as far as streaming is concerned, but I could go watch those if I want to. Should I? I'll leave that to other people to debate. But you, Matthew Patterson, were on an episode of Cereal at Midnight a couple of years ago.
Oh, I have been on your podcast, and it's like now you're on mine because we're like a rap crew, right?
I think it's a channel, Matthew.
Oh,
and then
anyway,
so you said
yes.
Something to that. Someone was like, I was like, how do you feel? I was trying to gauge your temperature on this. I was like, how do you feel about physical media? And you were like, I just like you dodged it very effectively. You're like, I have stuff all over the place. What it really comes down to is like I think you have hard drives full of stuff all over the place, and you have like whatever you can get. And but you said, what's a disc, right? It's just a delivery system, which I completely agree with. And then you said maybe we'll have. You held up a water bottle. You're like, movie in a water bottle one day, and it'll project the movie in 4K or whatever. And people were like, that son of a, how could he say this about this? It's like this fetishization of this delivery system. What's wrong with a movie in a bottle or a pair of glasses, or if you have access to it, isn't that the point?
Yeah, I mean, it's super, like, you know, having not started at the beginning like Matthew, but been part of the journey early on with Warner Archive, where we went from being the hated bastards because it was MOD to being like, oh, this is the label that's actually doing it right. And it was so much about the fetishization, and you know, and I'm not, the disc rot thing is real. It's exaggerated, but it's definitely
not with
real.
The Warner Archive discs,
but not with properly pressed. Every time we put something out, people would complain because it wasn't properly pressed, and was like, it's a disc. The data's the same. Just put it in your player. But no, because it wasn't a pressed disc, and it was in their mind burned, although that's not actually how they're made. It was somehow lesser, and then it turns out, you know what? It's just the delivery system. I'm totally with Heath on this.
I wrote like a little position paper for Warner Brothers that in like, I think it was actually because I was on a cruise. So I think it was 2015 that I wrote it, which was a while ago. This is before NFTs. With noticing the industry trend where they were pushing digital delivery because they didn't need to carry an inventory, which is something that was haunting the physical business. And what Dan is talking about in the early days when people would use the phrase relegated to the Warner Archive, we took the stuff that the regular home entertainment team thought would not be able, they couldn't sell in a Best Buy, right? And that list over time, as we knew, was going to get bigger and bigger. The home video people didn't quite see it the same way. And we'd figure out a way to get them restored and available. And then our master would then be put onto digital, right? Benefiting everybody. It was more about access and getting the movie in any digital form, because early on, our releases, just for the first year or so, were not remastered. They didn't have extras. And fans emotionally felt that the studio was saying what they liked was somehow less. Our job, and we did this through social media and our newsletters, and it was very careful, and this is why Dan came on, because the executives who were running our program noticed that the more we showed we did care and demonstrated, and the more that we reinvested back into the business, the more sales went up, right? And then we were able to start to put more commentaries in, and then we brought back stuff into print that was out of print, but using our manufactured on demand method, which was a little more expensive for a consumer because the individual discs cost more.
Right, which people actually never understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it allowed us to, we could make back our money on sales of a few hundred discs, right? Rather than a few thousand. And those discs are still available because all that work was done.
Right.
There's
no inventory
cost
to be carried. There's no giant cardboard displays that have to be delivered to a seller. There's no competition for shelf space. They're just available because it's a delivery system.
And what we were trying to do was maybe create a service that perhaps one day you could have an option, right? Like imagine if you opened up an HBO Max or a Netflix and
right,
you could...
the goal, which was never met, which was always to be like you could watch it in streaming and then click a button and purchase a disc.
Yeah, like it's like I called it the Burger King method, have it your way, right? And
right.
So, and also, by the way, it would have been cool to have the extras or whatever available for streaming on that page if you just wanted to see them, or
right,
as a disc.
Which is the model that, like, you know, Movies Anywhere has tried to fulfill, if possible. You know, you buy your digital delivery from Vudu or Amazon, whatever, but if you go to Movies Anywhere, it's the film and all the extras that were formerly only found on disc, but are now made available that way.
I also want to say, because people are going to be like, Heath, but you know that we love the collectible aspect. Like, I look behind Dan, I see the comic collection. I have a comic collection like that too. I want to talk to Dan at some point, not in this, but like I'm going digital with my comics. And it's been super liberating, and I know how you feel about it, but like we can have that conversation later.
No.
But it's part of the collection.
No,
question.
and like I actually got into huge trouble early on in my corporate employment. I was on a group call with DC because I don't even remember what
was it. WB Shop?
It was probably WB Shop call, and I said to them, I was like, why don't you guys make digital subscriptions available? Because that will only expand your market, and there are people that like either can't keep up or don't have a local comic shop. If you just allowed people to digitally subscribe, it would be a boon. And there was silence, and then later on I was pulled aside and told, never, ever, ever inject your opinions into a group call again. And you know, it only took them 5 years to start actually offering them.
We have found that digital services are additive, right? Because we went through several launches because there was a Warner Archive streaming channel.
What?
And it became, for us, it created more awareness for the product. And in some ironies, because Warner Brothers didn't really take advantage of it, other streaming services and television channels, one of which owned by Sony, just would look at our releases and then be like, oh, cool, they've publicized it already. And then they'd add it to their schedule. But even them adding it to the schedule actually increased knowledge about the show and increased sales, right? Because the more people know, the more they interact and the more they buy from a publisher standpoint, right? If you're a filmmaker, when you see your product out there for cheap or free, especially with piracy, you feel like that's your money being drained away. So,
to tie it back to filmed entertainment, yes. The Monkees has had a checkered Blu-ray history recently. There was this package that was manufactured for the complete series of the Monkees. Then it was made unavailable, and it's still kind of unclear to the public why. Then it came back, and it's unavailable again. But guess what? They're all at archive.org right now. So I don't think legally, but they're there.
I still don't have a copy of Head, and my dilemma is: do I try to track down the series Blu-ray, or do I track down the Criterion? Because I don't know. Because I really just want Head. But on the other hand, all the Monkees is a good thing.
In our first episode, we actually talked about the Monkees a little bit, and I went and tried to see the availability of it, because I was trying to.
But then there was a warehouse find that was then unfound. That just happened in it was like the past month.
It's interesting, but again, that library was not ours, and you can see because the music rights are here, and they Head, the movie rights, are probably somewhat maybe with Paramount. I mean, unless they lost the rights to that, and the TV rights are all split, and that it costs time and money to unravel those rights, and even then sometimes it's not clear, and some people just walk away from it. However, the rights to Dark Shadows was definitely made clear when they put them all in that giant coffin.
I'll lift it up again. That's fine. Here I go.
Have you had a chance to go through them?
Yeah, I got a video hitting my channel this week. I don't know when this is going up, but I got a video
probably a month ago at this point.
So so hey guys, head over to my channel and you'll see that I have I'm doing a video for each one of the volumes. There's 22 of them. Each one has 6 discs, so it's 53 episodes per chunk. So I have done part 1 of 22.
All right, I'm definitely tuning in when you hit the what was it, the West Wing, the West Room, when they introduced the parallel realities to the show, and there was the whole wing of the house that was the other.
I never really saw the show because they didn't really repeat it, and I was too young. I was like 1 year.
Oh, and then when they did syndicate it, they started with Barnabas, and the actual I don't know, almost a year of episodes when it was just a gothic. No one,
and not even that. Sometimes, let me tell you, I'm 53 episodes in, and I'm like, "What is this about? Nothing has happened." They've got so Burt Devlin. You got the character of Burt Devlin, and I don't think they've written what he's supposed to have done yet. I think that there was a murder. I think that there was it was a wrongful imprisonment, but I don't think the writers are sure yet either. Because every episode, it's just like, "What are you doing?" "I'm going into town." "What are you going to do in town?" "I'm going to talk to Burt Devlin." "Don't talk to him. He's a monster." But Burt Devlin knows what's going on. "Well, what is going on?" I'm like, "I can't tell you." And then credits. And then the next episode, they're like, "We'll just vamp until we have something to talk about." But you can see I've seen evidence of a ghost now, and it's atmospheric like crazy. It's like popcorn, right? It's so atmospheric, but it's not direct. It doesn't have a focus. You see, they're trying to figure out where it's going. So that whole first year is like, what is this show? What are we doing here? And then, of course, when the vampire stuff gets introduced, it's a whole other thing. But it's been an interesting discovery for me because I'm like, just show them. It's the original Seinfeld, right? It's a show about nothing. They just sit around talking.
That's a funny way to pitch it because I've never really heard somebody pitch it that way.
No, and it's like Jonathan Frid shows up and the show sparks up. And then, the next, and he doesn't get talked about enough because people tend to now associate him with Falcon Crest. But David Selby is the next Jonathan Frid. But like when Quentin first shows up, he's just a menacing ghost, and then they develop a whole backstory for Quentin and make him a real character. But for the longest time, it's like a voice on a Victrola.
What one of the reasons why I wanted to talk a little bit about Dark Shadows, Heath, is that because you haven't seen the episode because it hasn't been released yet. In the episode of Archive Guys just before this, we talk a lot about the Kolchak Blu-ray, which came out at Christmas.
Great
which
set too.
Is a fantastic set. It's
I
like,
want to know, didn't it win a Rondo? It just won an award, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Yeah,
it did.
Yeah.
And it deserves it.
I'm gonna interrupt.
Yes, please do.
Kolchak.
Sorry, I'm using my New Jersey accent.
I know.
Isn't it interesting to see how you start with the movies, right? You start with the 2 TV movies, and then by the time you get to that last episode, it's almost a comedy. I mean, it pretty much is a comedy. Like, you can see Dan McGavin just totally switched the tone.
Yeah. I remember watching the show, and I think it was the episode, and I might get the title wrong, the motorcycle episode, which I think is called Chopper.
That's me doing Chopper.
Yeah. I think that, as a kid, watching that episode was when I felt like, oh, there's been a shift here. Night Stalker and Night Strangler were pretty scary, and Chopper is just entertaining.
Yeah. So I was doing this because, as they note, the original script called for a chain because he was a biker.
Right,
and
which makes way more sense.
And then they added the samurai sword, which puts it very over the top. And they have an interview with David Chase that's very revealing, because when he first starts talking about it, he's a little embarrassed because he's maybe more thinking of the later episodes. And then as he recalls it, he's like, wait, there was really something to this show. I, however, as an adult, loved that progression. And then the Chopper episode is like, I'm like, this is amazing.
This is something I'm curious about. Because, like, Matt, like, okay, your shirt, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about the bizarre nature of the Chopper episode and how you love that. And I like that too. But it's not ironic. I don't like it ironically. I'm not like, oh, I'm better than this thing. Can you explain that? I feel like, and I see this a lot from my seat, is that there's so much irony and there's so much like disdain for camp.
Oh,
so this was quite a number of years ago, but there was a screening at Hollywood Forever of Phantasm, and Angus Scrimm was there to introduce it. And Angus is was one of the nicest human beings the world has ever produced. Super sincere, super lovely. And he got up and he introduced the film, and he talked about Hollywood Forever because his sister and his mother were buried there, and he used to work down the street at the Paramount Commissary, and it was all very touching. And then they screened Phantasm, and the crowd was, primarily, and I don't want to be dismissive of young people, but it was young people. And they were so ironically dismissive of Phantasm. And I'm like, you guys, just sit back and take it in. It's a cool, crazy, weird movie. And yes, there's some missteps and things because Don Coscarelli has never had any money to make these films, and he's done an amazing job. But yes, the snickering drove me up the wall.
This is a big question among fans and programmers, right? How do you market these movies, and how do you get the largest number of people, especially when you're doing a screening? Different people enjoy, especially live screenings, differently. They react differently, right? Like, Dan might have had this experience too. When I was younger, and maybe I went to New York to see a movie in Manhattan, it was a very different experience than seeing it in the suburbs, because people would talk back to the thing, and at first
I didn't know that Jason was a good guy till I saw Friday the 13th movie in Times Square.
Exactly. These people are seeing the movie through different eyes and experience. And that's the same thing about somebody like the graveyard screenings in LA when they first happened, like they were showing because they could 16 millimeter copies of like Corman's Poe movies, right? Seeing like The Raven projected on the side of a mausoleum next to Paramount among the graves of Hollywood's early elite. And this was before they'd even fixed up the graveyard. The people who were seeing it on, you know, in mono, right? Like maybe you were going because it was a unique theatrical experience. Maybe you were going because you were a Poe fan or a Corman fan, but it was the whole thing was you were, I think, meeting the film more on its own terms. Corman made drive-in movies for a drive-in crowd, things. And then flash forward years later, the company that puts on those graveyard screenings is now an events company, right? And it's people who go. You know, I was with like maybe 100, 200 people who saw the Raven in the late 90s. And 20 years later, those things sell out. They're like, what, Dan, like 1,000, 2,000 people? I mean, I don't want to personally judge how people like a film. I think they should see it, and the more that they see, the more they'll understand. But for me personally, I never would have thought of putting a 50s greaser searching for his head on the back of a motorbike, killing people with the samurai sword. I'm not capable of that. And for that, I celebrate it, right? And that's a different place. Am I laughing? Yes. But am I surprised? Yes, because I don't know what's going to happen. Why don't we talk about New Year's Evil? Because I watched it. New Year's Evil is a Golan and Globos production from 1980. I guess it was supposed to be New Year's Eve, 1979 to 1980.
It's vague, isn't it?
It's a wonderful distillation of all the weird shit that was happening in independent film at the time, sort of a switch to horror. They were trying to do youth-oriented programming with music, and they let writers and directors do whatever they wanted as long as they delivered a film under the budget. And perhaps I'm a fan of it because it doesn't quite fit into any indie subgenre. I watched what's currently on Amazon Prime, and if you're a Prime customer, it's free.
It's part of this very interesting period because slasher films hadn't really become a thing yet.
Yeah.
But like I always like, you know, New Year's Evil and Night School.
Night School is another one. We've talked about Night School.
Is like super giallo driven, and New Year's Evil is not.
Nope.
But
it's like rock and roll high school driven.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because it's sort of the last gasp of the mainstream indie cinema that was kickstarted by Easy Rider.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it's before the slick blockbuster era took over everything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, and the film is full of this weird social commentary. Like,
yeah, but Dan, you probably saw an SD version. I saw what Amazon said was an HD version. Mine was in 4:3. Dan, was yours in 4:3? I'm assuming it was.
It was.
Heath, you have the new Blu-ray, which came out just like a few weeks ago as of press time.
It looks really good. They gave it a new 2K scan. You know, it came out from Screen Factory last, or Shout Factory, however you want to say it. And they did not do a new scan for it, right. I don't believe. And so, yeah, it's a new, it's real pretty. It's what we were talking about, right? Like,
is it 16:9? That was one of my questions.
Oh, I don't remember. I think it is. I would have noticed it
because it should be.
Well, it should be, but the Shout Factory one, I think I saw the Shout Factory scan, which was HD but 4:3.
What?
There's a reason for it that Dan and I know about the Canon library, because a lot of those have come through Warner Brothers. They don't have a lot of Canon elements, so it's very difficult to source a widescreen master.
Okay, so it is a new 2K scan. And you were talking about the full frame or the 4:3. I would have noticed that. I for sure would have noticed that.
I think you would have. Yeah. So it's probably like, 16:9.
Wait a minute, Doc. What is it? This is I would be like, no, this isn't right. And it also has, so they carried over, Scream Factory produced a 37-minute documentary about,
Oh, wow.
and it's really in depth too, because they talk to I think they talked to the writer, and they talked to the people who are involved with it. And it's really like kind of what you're talking about. Like, it wasn't intended to just be this throwaway, let's throw something out there for the slasher kids, because that wasn't really a thing yet.
Right.
Now, I do think that Golan and Globus were trying to make money for sure, but they were being ambitious with what they thought was the next thing that was coming along. But yeah, it's getting the story from that. Like, all these movies. There's another one, I can't remember the name of it either, but Arrow Video just put out this shot on 16 regional horror movie, and you hear the story from the people that made it, and they're like, they intended it to be like, this was their shot, you know. So it's always interesting to see these movies, and like, people you don't spend all that effort, you know, years of effort in things that you don't believe in, things that you think are crap. Oh my goodness. Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge. Like, yeah, the story behind the scenes for that thing that just came out on from Arrow as well. And the people behind it are like, what a nightmare experience. Like one guy left the business because he was so jaded by the whole thing.
Movies about youth culture and rock and stuff that was new, and a lot of these older film producers, they made money by catering to the youth by doing rock and roll. And so in this movie, they correctly assessed that punk new wave, at least in California, was like kind of the next big thing, but it was not a radical shift from, like, you know, big band music to rock and roll. It was just a style shift, maybe more of a flash in the pan. And if you didn't live through any piece of that era and you watched it now, you'd be like, what am I seeing? Because it isn't. It looks like hair metal, but it's not hair metal.
It's supposed to be punk, right? But it's like blues. And like, these guys are playing blues. I'm like, what is this like steamy blues jam that you're playing right now for this New Year's Eve crowd? Like, it's
right.
Yeah,
weird.
Right, yeah.
And the setup is that they have a national show, and they're hoping the network picks it up. And the hostess is like doing a Jerry Lewis Labor Day marathon. Right, because there's a phone bank, but she's taking.
We should say she's Pinky Tuscadero. It's Roz Kelly. Pinky Tuscadero is the
Pinky Tuscadero, and she has a son and an estranged husband who happens to be insane, and the son.
It's very ambitious.
But I did look at some reviews where I don't think people really even understood the cultural context of what it came out of. The people at the time may have picked up on, you know, but now it's kind of it's like you need a 37-minute movie to explain a 1 hour, 30-minute film.
I'm going to give you this, Matt. Labor Day, the horror movie.
Yeah. Because people keep saying, oh, this was holiday horror, you know, because Halloween had come out, and they were like, okay, New Year's Eve, right? You know, it's not a Christmas movie. Yes, it has that, and it has a clever like mechanism where there'll be a murder at. It's probably one of the only time zone horror movies I can think of. And in the back of my head, I was like, well, Puerto Rico, it was New Year's Eve an hour before.
I know, lazy killer.
There was no murder in Alaska.
And there's no Hawaii killing either.
At the end, in the epilogue, they do usher in the new year in Hawaii 3 hours later. I'm just going to point out that I was the only person.
Cutting to Jerry Lewis pitching for the Hawaii that's coming up. Give us that. Just like...
Yeah. They had like all these really kind of interesting things, but the formula had not gelled in 1979 when they had put this together. But it was a very unique way of dealing out the deck.
And isn't it worth championing for that? Like,
for sure.
You and I talked one time.
Sure. Yeah.
Matt, you were saying something like, even a bad movie, which I'm not saying that New Year's Evil is a bad movie, but there's always something to take away from it. And I think that's the mark of somebody that really loves film and loves movies and loves the craft of creation, is that whether something succeeds at what it was trying to do or not, it's the journey that's the interesting part. And there's so much that's interesting in this movie because it's not what you expect.
And the reviews that I looked at online, a lot of the people who were writing about it and saying, don't watch it, that's an interesting thing, because like, well, then why are you writing about it? And everything that they complained about made me want to see it. Right?
Well, this is
I'm because it's different.
Because one of the things when we were marketing the library for Warner Archive, right, we were getting not the hits, but the Matt would say the S word,
or I would say the Island of Misfit Movies.
But yes, but I mean, really, it was King Moonrazer stuff, because I was always like, look, with enough time, all of these things are interesting. They're all worth watching, even the ones that are glacially paced, because you can be like, what is happening here? But like, yes, everything is worth seeing. It is.
And you mentioned like this has Roz Kelly from Happy Days, and
it's LA in the 80s. It's this
79-80, right?
Yeah, and it's Hollywood not understanding what punk is, but it also has an interesting soundtrack, and
the soundtrack is very unique, and they have shout outs to KROQ, which is correct.
Right.
Like, and the wardrobe, while it might be a little off, but it wasn't over the top in a regular Hollywood style, they just probably, and I didn't see any of the making of, they just probably told a bunch of kids, like, show up how you dress for a night out and we'll feed you.
Right.
And so that felt more real. Okay, wait, here we have, I love the movies that the actors were also in. There's so I said Roz Kelly. There's Kip Newman from Magnum Force, Grant Kramer from Hard Bodies, Louisa Moritz from Death Race 2000, Taifa O'Connell from Galaxy of Terror, Terry Copley from TV's We Got It Made, and the director, Emmett Alston, did 9 Deaths of the Ninja and Demon Warp. Now, that, to me...
You could have stopped talking at Hard Bodies.
Which is that is a midnight movie classic.
You got to dialogue the chicks to turn them onto the BBD. See, that's how well I still remember Hard Bodies. I can quote it.
A VHS classic. I would call Hard Bodies a VHS classic.
Dude, I so saw it in the theater.
Keith, was there anything about New Year's Evil, especially the Blu-ray, that you would recommend?
I would definitely recommend it, because it's not like it's a great movie, but it's a fun movie and it's interesting for people. I see a lot of people that say, I only watch horror. I get that a lot. I only watch horror. Well, here's an interesting movie that you haven't seen 100 times already, and that has some cool things about it. And it's got the new scan, and it's got the making of, which I think is important, because you don't always get the stories behind these movies. And for people, again, I don't know the way we're talking about these movies, I gather maybe not everybody's like that, but it's how I think. And like, I want to study where this came from. I want to hear the stories of the director and the writer. And like, well, this was started in 1971. And I first like, some of the stuff's really interesting to me. So if you're a horror fan, New Year's Evil is definitely worth checking out. Unironically, I wouldn't come in like, look at this piece of crap. That's the thing. I can't stand that. People that come in ready to watch failure. It's cool. Like, if you're a Happy Days fan, check, and
right. You can watch it that way.
You can,
and you will enjoy it. Like, but don't learn anything about it. Just go in and be puzzled. Keith, speaking of obscure media, tell us a little more about cereal at midnight. What kind of cereal do you eat at midnight?
Oh, okay. So I'm usually not awake at midnight, which I know that's disappointing.
Faker, will it click off?
Yeah, that's that. If I was up, it would probably be Cinnamon Toast Crunch, because that's my favorite.
They had a jingle which has been stuck in my head for 35 years, which is like, feeling like cinnamon toast, feeling like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I don't know why that's stuck in my head. Is that a selling point?
I don't remember that, but jingle, I'm a jingle maniac, right? Like, I walk around the house. Yeah, I'll check it out when this is over. Like, I love jingle. They get in your head and they stay there forever.
It's an earworm.
Yeah,
Yes.
I got like Keebler jingles rattling around in there, and
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
most of Barry Manilow's greatest work is jingles.
What was his best jingle, Dan? Do you know?
McDonald's.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's Barry Manilow. I didn't know.
Yeah.
and a plug for Cereal at Midnight is I talked to his producer and writing partner Ron Dante, the voice of the Archies.
The great Ron Dante.
That's
Wow.
right. He'd like to buy the world of Coke. He sang that.
Yeah.
That
And
was fun.
And you have T-shirts available as well. Even if you don't like his blog, you can get a shirt.
Yeah, you could hate buy a shirt if you really want to. Cerealatmidnight.com. That's where you can find everything. All the videos go there. All the reviews, the written reviews are posted there. There's a link to my Patreon. There's a link to the store, so you can buy many different varieties of shirts. We got several cool designs. Eric Griggs from the Pop Trash Museum designed a lot of our stuff, and I love them. Great stuff. So yeah.
Now, unfortunately for me and Dan, Heath, you do not live in the Los Angeles area, so you can be one of our 3 friends. So we were unable to take you to the TCM Film Festival, which, as recording time, was that last weekend, Dan?
I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
because I was super jealous and I really wanted to be there, and this was like I wanted to go. It was last weekend. Trust me. I was following it on Twitter. Yeah.
This is an event that we know that you would like, and it's an event that it's not cheap, right? The cheapest pass was almost $900. No, the $400 pass, which is the cheaper pass, only allows you into the mainstream movies, which for somebody like us, we would rather have a cheaper pass to be in the more obscure films. But TCM and their marketing department, they're targeting most of their
omnivores.
We're omnivores, but they target a cruise ship crowd.
Yeah.
And but if you're cheap like us and no longer employed by the Warner Discovery mega network, we found that you can buy individual tickets for $20, or if you're a member of the American Cinematheque, as I was, $10. And so you can get in and hang out with everybody. And then if they don't fill the theater for $10, you can walk in and find whatever seat is left. So I did the festival, and you can tell how many films I saw. I did the festival for $50 and didn't shut up for a few days. Dan, because this is the first time I've seen some of these people in years.
I mean, it was really because this was the first time it had been back physically, and it was actually for me, aside from seeing Spy Smasher, it was actually really great to see so many people that we literally have not seen in 3 years.
Yeah, and got to talk to people not on Zoom. About films. And as I found, we can talk over each other faster in person rather than online and force other people to watch it.
Yeah.
Dan and I got to see what I sort of called the ultimate fan film for Spy Smasher, where they took Paramount has apparently remastered a lot of their old Republic serials, but they don't know what to do with them, God forbid.
Which is crazy to me because, like, all the data is clear that what people actually watch on streaming are old TV shows. And yet, try to find Maverick or a Republic serial on a streaming service. You can't, because the people that are curating this stuff don't actually look at the data while they're running around talking about how it's a data-driven business.
And the window for retail disc sales is rapidly closing, right? Especially for a Republic,
but
they don't have a program.
Paramount has a streaming service. Just put all the Republic serials that you own up on the streaming service and watch people watch them.
And hopefully, after this festival, and they saw that they sold out the theater. that might happen because they have all this in HD. And Dan and I saw what you could call, and they should release this too, a teaser version where a guy took what would be about 6 hours or 5 hours of the
Right.
Spy Smasher serial and made it, it was like an hour and 40. Did he get it down to?
Yeah.
An hour 40, which, he tried to use the best elements that Paramount had, and he worked on restoring a lot of different sound. He had a sound mix that was maybe not necessarily 100% made for a movie theater, but it was really good. And the cut down, it's a fan. I mean, it's a professional fan film, because he's cutting down something that was originally long to get people in the door and to show them what it would be like maybe if it was made now into a film, because he did like a 30-minute lecture on how serials were which were the Saturday morning TV of earlier generations are what we have on television and movies now.
Yeah, and he also correctly said, like, look at the serials, look at any Marvel movie. It's the same formula, and it's true.
Yeah, and so that's what you missed, Heath.
Well, can I plug something real quick?
Please do.
I do a segment on Serial at Midnight. I've done 3. I've done Serials at Midnight, where I talk about particular serials. I did King of the Rocket Men, which I connected to the
Great
Rocket
one. Great one.
I did the original Superman, the first Superman one.
Great one.
Which I, of course, connected to, Superman. And I did the first Flash Gordon serial, which, of course, is like all of Star Wars and some Indiana Jones and like all that stuff. But I love serials, and hearing you guys talk about it, a little heartbroken that I couldn't have seen that. But maybe in
next
a later
year.
movie.
Next year, Heath, come out next year, and you can do the $20 version of the tour, if you will. You just got to be selective and see the things that the people with passes don't want to see.
Do we have letters, Matt?
Oh my God, we do. I'm just gonna read one letter because we chatted way too much. I solicited letters. We'll read the rest on the next one, but I will only read the letter that.
Is this the NFT letter?
Yes, because I preset it, and I don't think I can go back on it. Here is the letter from Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Do you talk about Bat Cowl NFTs? Should I buy a Bat Cowl for $300? I saw that $300 was for inside content and that it was going to be served up over the next 2 years, and I thought, so what? Dan?
Well, Tom, that is an interesting question. I personally would happily subscribe to a real Bat Cowl service where I was mailed a version of Batman's cowl every few months that I could wear around the house.
And frighten your neighbors?
Yeah, however, I'm just a little dubious about a collectible currency that can be broken by a magnet. I'm just going to throw that out there.
That is a huge misunderstanding of what an NFT is, but that is your prerogative because you are allowed to.
I understand. I understand that it is technically accessible in your digital wallet, but it's still not actually accessible, is it?
Look, as a kid, I misunderstood what really a baseball card was and what the value was of that multiple times, and even comic books when I thought I knew more. I wrote back that I asked myself this very question, Tom. Collectibles are terrible investments, but if you like them, they're fine. That's what actually makes them collectible. If people want them, then they are inherently collectibles. And then they will have resale value if there are more people who want them. This is like supply and demand at a very simple level.
10 years from now, are people going to want a digital Batman cowl? I doubt it.
When people made baseball cards at the back of cigarettes?
No,
Did they think people?
It's the things that people didn't think they wanted that became more valuable because they weren't held on to.
Correct. I said,
Yes.
personally, I'm not sure if I'm $300 NFT Batman fan. And I am a fan of weird collectibles because I will admit, I did think about it. And if somebody gave them away to me at a much low, if they were $50, that's different. Even if there was a gas fee, it wound up being $100. Do I have 2 of the free NFTs that DC gave away for their streaming event? And have I connected them when they are able to be connected to a wallet? Will I connect them to a wallet? Yes. Do I own NFTs? Yes, I do. I own 2. One is one I made myself and burned and cost me $100 because I wanted to see what would happen. And what happened was I took a picture of my watch, which, by the way, anybody can look up and buy from me. I took a picture. Oh, why do I have 2 watches? One is a gaming watch. I took a picture of the Apple Watch, but I modified what it said because I find that the Apple Watch, I turned this off. The Apple Watch shamed me for not exercising. So I changed the text to say, you can still make it. You still have time to get up, run around, kill a man with a hammer, and get away with it before midnight.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I turned that into an NFT. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go through the process of buying one. And
what were those posters called? The inspirational posters?
Yeah, like accessories.
Yeah, you should totally do that. I would support that business.
I very early in my internet history, I made fake accessories posters.
Let's hang a cat from a wire, say hang in there and sell it as an NFT. Not actually hang a cat, to be clear.
I know what you mean. Dan is talking about the posters that came with Scholastic books in the 70s and 80s, where if you bought enough books, you would get a free poster, and one of them notoriously was of a cat hanging, and it says "hang in there," which I made one like that, and they're not safe for work. And so then, if you look at that, then DC might think that people want a cowl that can be worn inside the metaverse, which doesn't exist.
Which doesn't exist, right? Heath, what are your thoughts?
I see why people want to sell them, but I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody that wants to buy them, and I suspect I never will. It's only worth what someone is willing to pay. And when people talk to me about physical media, I need to make it very clear. I love physical media. As I hold my Dark Shadows box set, but what Dan said, like, digital and physical are complementary. They're not competing. There's no war there. So I do love my physical media. But like, when people ask me, oh, what's that Dark Shadows set worth? Well, it's worth whatever enjoyment I get from it. It's worth whatever I was willing to pay for it. So when I used to do a lot of thrift store videos, and I don't now, because every time the conversation is just like, well, what's that worth? Well, for me, it was worth watching. It was finding this like Rodgers and Hammerstein musical that I hadn't seen before in the wild, and I got it for $2 or whatever. But when value takes over the conversation about when it supersedes enjoyment, then I think that's problematic. And
it's a trap. It's like a value trap.
It's just like we were discussing earlier. Like, I have my old DVD box sets, and I have taken out the DVDs and put the Blu-rays in their place, thus actually nullifying their resale value.
Mm-hmm.
But
I've given the DVDs away, but they're for me. They're not for me to sell.
And you made your item, your mass market item, you customized it, right?
Yeah.
It's relevant to you. As a kid, I liked collectibles, and in interacting with adults, you could find, like, you could trade with your friends, but there was this adult market, and So are NFTs like that? Yeah, they're a little like, hey kids, buy two, and you're like, what? They're not even, I mean, they're fun, right? But it's
Are they?
not
Are they?
to some
It
people.
can be like I bought an album and it came with a token that unlocks the album. I mean, it can't see it's cool technology. It's an interesting development in technology, but must we always exploit technology for profit immediately? Like, do we always have to immediately be like, what's about the value? I guess we do. We do.
That's why Dan and I are poor. By the way, I don't know. I think you do know this because we've talked about it. I am not a format collector, but a collector of formats. So I have a very large, like failed formats are and failed video game.
Matt, how many Palm Pilots do you own?
Oh my God. One late night at about 4 a.m, I decided that I was going to get into the buy a Palm Pilot visor box of broken phones, and then I would fix them and resell them and I don't know why. And I got this huge box of them, and I did actually know how to repair them and fix them, but I was like, I'm not selling these. And so I gave them to everyone I knew.
I have one.
Yeah. See, I would be like, hey, fix this. It works. Because the iPhone, when it first came out, was so expensive, and I could pick up a Palm like $20, right? Like I was like, why would you want an iPhone? And then social media came out, and that was when I had to get the Apple. I tried to do it from a Handspring, and I accidentally texted my phone number to all of Comic-Con.
Wow.
All right, that's a good. That is where we should end it.
Yeah. All right. That's all that we have time for today, because in the Talk to Matt and Dan simulator that unfortunately he found his way into,
trapped
still looks shell-shocked.
I've been here for 12 hours.
Yeah, this is just cut down, but you can see he's actually lost weight. By the way, we're accepting review copies, although nobody's taken us up on them because I think they're afraid. You can send us a note on social media or write us at archiveguys.com. Perhaps that's too clever. And is there anything, Heath, that you are up to, anything you want to promote or tell the peoples about?
No, I don't think that, especially since I don't know when this is coming out, but I'm always talking to people. I'm always talking about, it's a mix. I do a lot of new release product coverage, as you point. I think I get more, honestly, I think, and this is not a humble brag, I'm being sincere here. I think that I get more review materials than just about anybody else. And I take it very seriously. So while I have expressed these opinions in this video, this episode, like I genuinely love what I'm doing, and I take it I like the responsibility. It's a joy to review New Year's Evil. It's a joy to have Dark Shadows sent to me. Like I'm so grateful for this, and I try to put that back out. I try to share that experience, and I bring you, like people that watch, I bring you guys with me. But I also like to have deeper conversations about, like I'm going to do the Dark Shadows video. I like to do interviews. I got something coming up soon with another thing with C. Courtney Joyner, who I partner with frequently. We got something coming up on 30s horror, or maybe that's already out. Yeah, just the usual stuff. I'll be talking about comics. I'll be talking about movies and whatever. I just like to say, like, Cereal at Midnight is whatever's cool. I like to, pop culture and analog was kind of a catch-all for, like, I like older things, but it encompasses all of the stuff that we like, music and all that stuff. CEDs, Matt.
Yes. I tried not to mention them, but I know I mentioned that when I was on your podcast. But
yes. Right.
Why we like you, talking to you, is that you can talk to us, because you can almost hear that it's like this podcast is Dan and Matt Unleashed, talking about all the things that are not new releases. So thank you for joining us. Everybody, go check out Cereal at Midnight, especially if you're interested in new releases and collecting and beyond. And we hope to see you next time.